Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from a UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Now today's newspaper will be covered by me and Basava sir. Now these are the important news which we have taken up for today's discussion, and the time stamping for these has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from a UPSC prelims and mains perspective.
Now, this particular article appears on page number 7 in the form of a data point. Now, this particular article talks about the low attendance of the MPs in the parliamentary committees. Hence, this particular article becomes important from the perspective of GS Paper 2, Polity and Governance, particularly with respect to functioning of the Indian Parliament. As you can see, in the previous year prelims, repeatedly questions have been asked with respect to various aspects of parliamentary committees. Similarly, even in mains also questions have been asked with respect to parliamentary committees such as the Public Accounts Committee, Parliamentary Standing Committees and so on. And as you can see, in mains 2021, we had almost 2 questions related to the various aspects of the parliamentary committees. Hence, as far as the prelims examination is concerned, one should be aware about various aspects of parliamentary committees such as what exactly the parliamentary committees are, what are the different types of parliamentary committees, their composition, role and functions. And as far as the mains examination is concerned, one should be aware about the critical analysis of the parliamentary committees. That is, to what extent the parliamentary committees have been able to ensure the government's accountability towards the parliament. So as part of the critical analysis, one should be aware as to what are the current issues in the parliamentary committee system and what should be done in order to strengthen the parliamentary committees. So based upon the analysis of these aspects related to article, one should be in a position to attempt these 4 prelims questions for practice and also a mains question for the practice. A mains question for practice here is, what do you mean by the parliamentary committees? To what extent the parliamentary committees have enabled the parliament in ensuring the government's accountability? Hence, as part of this particular video analysis, we'll look into the different dimensions of the parliamentary committees. That is, what do you mean by the parliamentary committee? What are the types of parliamentary committees? How parliamentary committees ensure the government's accountability towards the parliament? What are the current issues in the parliamentary committees? And what should be done going ahead, wherein we look at the recommendations given by the National Commission to review the working of Indian Constitution. So let's start with the first dimension of the parliamentary committees as to what exactly the parliamentary committees are. So if you look at the basic mandate of the parliament, the basic mandate of the parliament is twofold. 1, to make laws, and 2, to ensure the government's accountability to the parliament. Hence, in order to enable the parliament to make laws and to ensure the accountability of the government towards the parliament, what we have in case of India is the parliamentary committees. See, the Indian Constitution talks about the parliamentary committees at various places. But please understand here, as of now, we do not have any explicit provisions related to the parliamentary committees in the Indian Constitution. The parliamentary committees derive their authority from Article 118 of the Indian Constitution. Article 118 of the Indian Constitution basically empowers the parliament to make rules and regulations related to its business. Hence, in pursuance with this Article 118, the Parliament has set up a number of parliamentary committees. So what exactly the parliamentary committees are? So if you look at the broad features of the parliamentary committees, the parliamentary committees may either be elected or appointed by the houses of the parliament. So they can be elected or appointed either by Lok Sabha or by Rajya Sabha. And in some of the cases, the parliamentary committees may be nominated by the chairperson of the house. So in case of Lok Sabha, it will be the Speaker of Lok Sabha, and in case of Rajya Sabha, it will be the chairperson of Rajya Sabha. So it is not necessary that all the parliamentary committees are compulsory elected or appointed by the houses. In some of the cases, the parliamentary committees may be nominated by the chairperson as well. All the parliamentary committees would work under the chairperson of the respective houses, and they also submit reports to the chairperson. And these parliamentary committees are in turn supported by the secretariat of the respective houses. So these are the broad features as far as the parliamentary committees are concerned. Now coming to the types of parliamentary committees, now depending upon the tenure and the purpose for which the parliamentary committees are appointed or elected, we have basically two types of parliamentary committees. One is the standing committees and the ad hoc committees. The standing committees are considered to be the permanent committees of the parliament. So since they are permanent committees, they continue to work throughout the year. As far as the ad hoc committees are concerned, as the name itself suggests, these committees are non-permanent in nature. More importantly, these ad hoc committees as such, they may be set up for a specific purpose. So as and when these ad hoc committees fulfill their purpose, they would cease to exist. So while standing committees would continue to operate throughout the year, the ad hoc committees are set up for a specific purpose, and once that specific purpose is fulfilled, they would cease to exist. So if you look at the standing committees, depending upon the purpose for which they are set up, you have the financial committees, departmental standing committees, parliamentary committees to inquire, for example, the Parliamentary Committee on Petitions, Privileges, the Ethics Committee, some committees to scrutinize and ensure the government's control, for example, the Parliamentary Committee on Government Assurances, Committee on Subordinate Legislation, and so on. And then we have certain parliamentary committees to look after the day-to-day management of the houses. For example, we have the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee, and so on. As far as the ad hoc committees are concerned, the ad hoc committees can be in turn categorized into two types, that is the Enquiry Committee and the Advisory Committee. As the name suggests, the Enquiry Committee are basically set up to inquire into certain matters of public importance. The enquiry committees can be set up based upon the resolution of either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, and they can even be appointed by the chairperson of the houses of the parliament. For example, previously we had set up a parliamentary enquiry committee to inquire into the Beaufort scam. We had also set up the parliamentary enquiry committee to look into the stock market scam. So they were set up to inquire and investigate into certain specific instances. As far as the advisory committees are concerned, the advisory committees are set up in order to have a detailed examination of various bills presented before the Indian Parliament. Please do understand here that advisory committees are not set up for each and every bill which is presented before the Indian Parliament. There are certain ways in which these advisory committees may be set up. For example, as and when the particular minister presents a bill before the Parliament, the minister himself may decide to send the bill to the advisory committee for the detailed examination. Secondly, in case if the minister does not refer the bill to the advisory committee, the presiding officer of the house, either in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, may decide to send the bill to an advisory committee for its detailed examination. And thirdly, see, once a particular bill discusses and debate a bill, and if that particular house sends a bill to the another house, the members in the another house may in turn decide to send this particular bill to the advisory committee for its detailed examination. For example, let's say the Lok Sabha has already passed a bill. Now this particular bill goes to the Rajya Sabha, and in case of Rajya Sabha, the members may then decide to refer this particular bill to an advisory committee. So that is how the advisory committees on bills may be set up. Among all of these parliamentary committees, the most important committees happens to be the financial committees and the departmental standing committees. And usually repeatedly questions are asked from these parliamentary committees. So we will discuss about each of these parliamentary committees in much greater detail in terms of their composition, mandate, and the chairpersons. See, if you have a look at the previous year prelims questions, you would get to know that repeatedly questions have been asked with respect to the Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee, Committee on Publicity Undertakings, departmental standing committees, and so on. As far as these committees are concerned, students do not normally get confused as far as their mandate is concerned. This is so because if you look at the name of the committee, the name itself will tell us as to what is its mandate. Students normally get confused particularly with respect to the number of members in each of these committees, how these members are appointed, and the details about the chairpersons of each of these committees. That is, whether the chairperson can be from the ruling party or the opposition party, or whether the chairperson should be from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. That is where the students find difficulty in. Hence, keeping in mind the requirements of the UPSC Prelims examination as well as the difficulties of the students, I have prepared this particular table here which highlights all the important aspects related to the important parliamentary committees as far as your prelims examination is concerned. So let us start discussing about each of these parliamentary committees, starting with the Public Accounts Committee. I hope all of you must be knowing that the office of CAG submits the audit reports to the parliament. But if you look at these audit reports are quite voluminous in nature, and some of these audit reports may also be technical in nature. So because of lack of time and lack of expertise, the Parliament of India may not be in a position to examine all of these audit reports submitted by CAG. That is where the Public Accounts Committee comes into picture. So the basic mandate of the Public Accounts Committee is to examine the audit reports submitted by CAG. In fact, the Public Accounts Committee is in turn assisted by CAG, and that is why the CAG is referred to as the friend, guide and philosopher as far as the Public Accounts Committee is concerned. So the Public Accounts Committee has 22 members, 15 members from Lok Sabha and 7 members from Rajya Sabha. Each of these members, they are elected by the Parliament every year from amongst its members based upon the method of proportional representation by the single transferable vote. So almost all the political parties get due representation in the Public Accounts Committee based upon their representation in the Parliament. Each of the member in the Public Accounts Committee has a tenure of 1 year. As far as the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee is concerned, please understand here that the chairperson of Public Accounts Committee is appointed by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha from amongst its members. Till 1967, the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee used to belong to the ruling party, but since 1967, a healthy convention has been developed wherein usually the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee belongs to the opposition party. So Public Accounts Committee is undoubtedly one of the most important parliamentary committees which ensures the financial accountability of the government towards the parliament. Next, we have the Estimates Committee. See, whenever the Finance Minister presents the budget, I hope all of you must be knowing that the Finance Minister presents the estimates of the expenditure as well as receipts. Now, for example, the Finance Minister may provide us with an estimates of expenditure that we are going to spend 150 rupees for the coming financial year. Similarly, the Finance Minister may estimate that we are going to earn, say, around rupees 100 in the form of tax and non-tax revenue. So based upon this estimates of expenditure of 150 and receipts of rupees 100, the Finance Minister may estimate that we may be required to borrow rupees 50. Now, not all the time these estimates may be perfect. So we need to analyze whether these estimates are realistic or not. There may be certain instances where we can rationalize the expenditure, we can increase our receipts through alternative policies. Similarly, by reducing our expenditure and increasing our receipts, the need to borrow may reduce. So the Parliament needs to examine the budget estimates in terms of expenditure and receipts and also suggest certain alternative policies in order to come up with a better estimates and ensure efficient public expenditure. So that is where the Estimates Committee comes into picture. And as you can see here, all the 30 members in the Estimates Committee, they come from the Lok Sabha. Once again, all of these members, they are elected by the Parliament every year from amongst its members based upon the method of proportional representation by the single transferable vote. As far as the chairperson of the Estimates Committee is concerned, the chairperson is appointed by the Speaker from amongst its members. So usually the chairperson of the Estimates Committee will be from the Lok Sabha because all the members in the Estimates Committee are from the Lok Sabha. But the chairperson in this particular case will usually belong to the ruling party. So chairperson in case of Public Accounts Committee will usually belong to the opposition party, whereas the chairperson in case of the Estimate Committee will usually belong to the ruling party. Next, we have the Committee on Public Undertakings. I hope all of you must be knowing that we have a large number of public sector undertakings under the control of the central government. Each of these PSU, they submit their annual reports as well as accounts to the Parliament. So we need a parliamentary committee to analyze and carry out detailed examination of the reports and accounts of these PSUs. So that is where we have the Committee on Public Undertakings. So the Committee on Public Undertakings examines the reports and accounts of PSUs, and it also examines the audit reports of CAG on the public sector undertakings. The composition of the Committee on Public Undertakings is almost similar to that of the Public Accounts Committee. So as you can see, it has 22 members, 15 from the Lok Sabha and 7 from the Rajya Sabha. But as far as the chairperson is concerned, here the chairperson is appointed by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha from amongst its members, and compulsory the chairperson must be from the Lok Sabha only. So that is the most important part as far as the Committee on Public Sector Undertakings is concerned. And last, we have the Departmental Standing Committees. The Departmental Standing Committee's main role is to consider the demand for grants submitted by the ministries before the Parliament. See, whenever the Finance Minister presents the budget, the Finance Minister presents the appropriation bill, the finance bill, and the demand for grants of individual ministries and departments. As far as the appropriation bill is concerned, the appropriation bill is presented in order to seek the approval of the Parliament to withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India. So the appropriation bill deals with the expenditure side of the government. As far as the finance bill is concerned, the finance bill incorporates various proposals or changes as far as tax policies is concerned. So the finance bill deals with the income side of the budget. Apart from that, different ministries and departments also submit the demand for grants. So as part of the demand for grants, different ministries and departments are required to give details to the Parliament as to how much money they are going to spend and for what purpose the money is going to be spent for. So these details as such are incorporated in the demand for grants of the ministries. So these demand for grants of the ministries are in turn examined by the Departmental Standing Committees. The Departmental Standing Committees may also consider the annual reports submitted by the ministries and departments. The Departmental Standing Committee has 31 members, 21 from Lok Sabha and 10 from the Rajya Sabha. The members in this particular case, as you can see, they are nominated by the respective chairperson. So in case of Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee and Committee on Public Undertakings, the members are elected. But in case of Departmental Standing Committee, they are nominated. So totally we have 24 Departmental Standing Committees, 16 Departmental Standing Committees function under Lok Sabha and 8 Departmental Standing Committees function under Rajya Sabha. So these are some important aspects as far as the parliamentary committees are concerned, which you must remember from the perspective of the prelims examination. Now coming to the benefits of the parliamentary committees. So based upon our discussions which we had so far, we have discussed about the Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee, Committee on PSUs and so on. So by now you must have understood that these parliamentary committees acts as eyes, ears and brain of the Parliament. They help us carry out a detailed, close, in-depth control of the Parliament. These parliamentary committees can also avail the expert opinion. For example, as seen, the Office of CAG acts as friend, guide and philosopher for the Public Accounts Committee. So they can avail expert opinion. Nextly, see, whenever there are discussions, debate in the Parliament, normally the discussions and debate take place along the political lines. But when discussion is taking place in these parliamentary committees, the discussion and debate is taking place behind the closed doors. So usually, since the discussion and debate is taking place behind the closed doors, it is normally said that these parliamentary committees do not show any kind of political biasness. So all the members of these parliamentary committees actually function in unison in order to enhance the government's accountability towards the Parliament. And lastly, as you have seen, some of the committees such as the Estimates Committee, Committee on PSUs would help us ensure the efficiency and economy in the expenditure. Now, in spite of these benefits, even today, the parliamentary committees are facing a number of issues. The first problem with respect to parliamentary committees has been with respect to the poor quantity and poor quality of work done by them. In order to understand about the poor quantity of work, we can look into the number of reports submitted by them as well as the attendance of MPs in these parliamentary committees. And in order to understand the quality of work done by the parliamentary committees, we can look into whether their recommendations are accepted by the parliament or not. So, first and foremost, if you look at the quantity of work done by the parliamentary committees, first and foremost, it has been highlighted that most of the parliamentary committees do not submit the reports. Even if they submit the reports, there is huge delay in the submission of reports. For example, usually the Public Accounts Committee is considered to be quite prompt when it comes to submission of reports on time. Whereas, if you look at the other parliamentary committees such as the Ethics Committee, the Rules Committee, etc., normally these committees do not submit the report, and even if they submit the report is submitted after a lot of delay. So, by the time these parliamentary committees submit the report would have lost its relevance. Secondly, as highlighted in today's article, the attendance of MPs in most of the parliamentary committees is below 50%. So this shows that the members of parliament have attached less importance to the parliamentary committees' debate and discussions. And the last part is with respect to the recommendations of the parliamentary committees. So most of the time, the recommendations given by the parliamentary committees are not even debated, discussed or accepted by the parliament. The other problem is with respect to shorter tenure of members in the parliamentary committees. As discussed before, the members in the parliamentary committees have a tenure of 1 year. So what happens is after the tenure of 1 year gets completed, the members are once again re-elected. So because of this shorter tenure, the members do not get the necessary expertise in a particular field or a sector. Now for example, let's say there is a particular member of parliament. First year, this member of parliament gets appointed to the Departmental Standing Committee on Agriculture. Second year, he gets appointed to the Departmental Standing Committee on Defense. Third year, he gets appointed to the Departmental Standing Committee on Rural Development. So, in each of these 3 years, this member of parliament is serving in 3 different departmental standing committees. And when this happens, this member of parliament will not be able to gain expertise in any of these 3 sectors. That is why recently the chairperson of Rajya Sabha, that is the Vice President of India, had highlighted that the minimum tenure of the members in these parliamentary committees should be 2 years. So by having a minimum tenure of 2 years, these members will be able to gain the necessary expertise in a particular sector. And last and most important point here is, see the kind of work these parliamentary committees are doing. They are carrying out a detailed, close and in-depth examination of government's finances, in-depth examination of government bills and so on. For this, they need adequate amount of support from the research. But it has been said that these parliamentary committees do not have adequate amount of support from the external agencies. Now, for example, let's say there is a particular parliamentary advisory committee which has been set up to look into a particular WTO agreement. Now, this is considered to be highly technical in nature. So, accordingly, this advisory committee of parliament should be able to have access to the people who have the necessary expertise in the field of international trade. So, in order to strengthen the parliamentary committees, we would have to accept and implement the recommendations given by the National Commission to review the working of Indian Constitution. See, as discussed before, whenever a bill is presented before the Indian Parliament, in some of the cases, this particular bill is in turn referred to the Select Committee of the Parliament for its detailed examination. That is, the bill is in turn sent to the Advisory Committee. But it has been seen that in most of the time, the bill is not sent to the Select Committee or the Advisory Committee. The bill is directly taken up for discussion, debate, and then passed. So that is why we need to develop a healthy convention to refer the bills to the advisory committees so that the advisory committees can look into the important provisions of the bill, understand their strengths, understand the weaknesses of the important provisions, and then submit its recommendations. So when the advisory committee submits its recommendations, other members of parliament can go through these recommendations and then decide to vote on this particular bill. So it's a healthy convention that has to be developed so that it in turn leads to greater debate and discussion in the parliament. Second, whenever the parliamentary committees submit their recommendations, a healthy convention should be developed in order to discuss the recommendations of these parliamentary committees. And lastly, see, various parliamentary committees can summon the government officials to appear before it The parliamentary committees can ask various questions to the government officials. However, as of now, there are certain constraints with respect to summoning the ministers before the parliamentary committees. However, in case of UK, the parliamentary committees can easily summon any minister to appear before them and ask various questions to the ministers. So as far as India is concerned, whatever limitations which we have as far as appearance of ministers before the parliamentary committees is concerned, these limitations should be addressed and we should make the ministers directly answerable to the parliamentary committees. So these are some of the important aspects as far as the parliamentary committees is concerned. So based upon our discussion, please try to attempt these questions which are asked in previous year prelims. Also attempt these 4 prelims questions for practice. Let us know the answers in the comment section given below. With this, let us now take up the next article. Now this particular article appears on page number 6, that is the editorial page. The article is highlighted as Step Up the Agricultural Spending, Boost the Farmers' Income. Now this particular article highlights the need to ramp up the public expenditure on the agriculture sector in order to double the farmers' income. Hence, this article shall be important from the perspective of GS Paper 3 Indian Economy, specifically under the subsection of the Indian Agriculture. And as far as its importance for the examination is concerned, from the perspective of the prelims examination, one should be aware about the recent trends in the gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture, that is the trends in terms of investment in the agriculture, and the concept of the agriculture orientation index, which has been highlighted in this particular article. And as far as the mains examination is concerned, one should be aware about the need for enhanced public investment in the agriculture. So based upon the discussion of this particular article, one should be in a position to attempt these 2 prelims questions for practice and this mains question for practice. The mains question for practice here is, the agricultural subsidies are encouraging those practices that needs to be discouraged. In this regard, there is a need to increase the public investment in the Indian agriculture as opposed to subsidies. Analyze. Let us now look into different dimensions of this particular article. That is, what do you mean by government expenditure on agriculture? What is its significance? What is the present status as far as government's expenditure on agriculture is concerned? The details related to the agriculture orientation index, and what should be the way forward. Now coming to the first dimension, that is government's expenditure on agriculture and what is its meaning. See, the government may undertake the expenditure in the agriculture sector either in terms of subsidies or the public investment. So as part of the subsidies program, the government provides subsidies to the poor and marginal farmers in terms of subsidies on water, seeds, electricity, fertilizers, minimum support price, etc. And when it comes to public investment, here the government is undertaking long-term investment in the Indian agriculture in order to solve the structural problems faced by the Indian agriculture. For example, as part of the public investment, the government is focusing on expanding the irrigation facilities, focusing on research and development to develop new high-yielding variety of seeds. It is focusing on increasing the penetration of mechanization of Indian agriculture, which has a potential to reduce the disguised unemployment in the Indian agriculture. The government can also focus upon increasing the post-harvesting infrastructure, and it also includes the organizing small and marginal farmers into the farmer-producer organizations. So in general, the government can either undertake the expenditure in the Indian agriculture in the form of subsidies or in terms of public investment. The overall significance of the government's expenditure on the agriculture sector is that this government's expenditure has a potential to double the farmers' income. See, earlier, in order to increase the farmers' income, we believe that increase in production of agricultural commodities would automatically lead to increase in the income levels. Now, for example, to the Green Revolution, we did not give a explicit focus on increasing the income levels of the farmers. This is so because we believe that if the production of the agricultural commodities increases, automatically it will translate into increase in the income levels. However, now we have realized that increase in production alone will not lead to increase in income levels. Now, we know that if you want to double or increase a farmer's income, we would have to focus upon 3 distinct parameters. That is, we must reduce the input cost, we must enhance the productivity, and we must ensure that the farmers are getting fair and remunerative prices on their agricultural produce. So now we have realized that increase in production alone will not to increase in income levels. If you want to increase the income levels, you will have to focus upon each of these three parameters. So when the government itself undertakes higher expenditure on the agriculture sector, it has a potential to address each of these parameters and hence double the farmer's income. Now, for example, if government is undertaking more of public investment, let's say particularly on research and development for new variety of seeds, automatically this will help us enhance the productivity of Indian agriculture. Similarly, if the government is focusing on creating post-harvesting infrastructure, we would be able to reduce the post-harvest losses and ensure that the farmers are getting higher prices on their agricultural produce. That is why the higher government expenditure on agriculture sector has a potential to double the farmers' income. So keeping in mind the significance of why the government should undertake expenditure on the agriculture sector, let us have a look at the present status. If you look at the latest budget announcement, that is Union Budget 22-23, the overall allocation for the agriculture sector has increased by 4% in comparison to the previous year's Union Budget. That is one positive thing. The second aspect, as highlighted by the Food and Agriculture Organization, is that between the years 2010 to 2019, the share of expenditure which the government undertook on agriculture, this was around 7.3%. So out of every 100 rupees that the government spent, approximately around 7.3 rupees was spent on the agriculture. And the Food and Agriculture Organization has highlighted that this is quite high in comparison to some of the other countries. However, in spite of these positives, still we have a number of concerns as far as the government's expenditure on agriculture sector is concerned. What are these concerns? First and foremost, see, as highlighted before, according to Food and Agriculture Organization, we are spending approximately around 7.3% of the overall government's expenditure on the agriculture sector. Now, this is quite high in comparison to some of the countries. However, the problem here is this is considered to be quite low in comparison to some of our neighboring countries. For example, as I said, we are spending 7.3% of the government's expenditure on agriculture. But look at Nepal. Nepal is spending 8% of its expenditure on the agriculture sector. Bhutan is spending approximately around 12%. So as you can see here, India is significantly underspending in comparison to its neighboring countries such as Nepal, Bhutan, China, etc. So that's the first problem. The second problem, as highlighted in this particular article, is with respect to low value of agricultural orientation index. So what exactly is this agricultural orientation index? See, the agricultural orientation index is measured and monitored by the Food and Agricultural Organization. This particular index is used in order to track the progress of the countries on the Sustainable Development Goal 2. As you know, the Sustainable Development Goal 2 deals with ending hunger and ensuring food security. So in order to understand as to what extent the countries have made progress on this Sustainable Development Goal, we have a specific index known as the Agricultural Orientation Index, which is being monitored by the Food and Agricultural Organization. So how exactly this Agricultural Orientation Index is calculated? So you can have a look at this particular formula. So the formula here is the share of government's expenditure on agriculture, that is what percentage of its expenditure the government spends on the agriculture. So as we have seen, in case of India, it is approximately around 7.3%, and this is divided by the share of the agriculture sector in the overall GDP. So in the formula, as you can see, in the numerator we have the share of government's expenditure on agriculture, and in the denominator we have the contribution of the agriculture sector to the overall GDP of a country. So this is how the agriculture orientation index of a particular country is being measured. If the value of agriculture orientation index is greater than 1, now this basically means that the government is undoubtedly focusing a lot on enhancing the expenditure on the agriculture relative to its contribution to the GDP. On the other hand, if the agriculture orientation index is less than 1, it means that the government of a country is underspending on the agriculture in relation to its overall contribution to the GDP. So it is quite good if the agriculture orientation index of a particular country is more than 1, which means that the government is spending more on the agriculture sector in relation to its contribution to the GDP. Now, as far as India is concerned, this particular article has highlighted that the overall agriculture orientation index for India has been steadily increasing. However, in spite of this, the agriculture orientation index as far as Indian economy is concerned, this is even today below 1. So let us have a look at this particular graph from the FAO website. So as you can see in this particular graph, I have tried to compare the agriculture orientation index for the US with that of India. And this India's agriculture orientation index has been highlighted by this black color line. And as you can see, the overall agriculture orientation index for India, it has increased from almost around 0.62 to more than 0.8 in the year 2014-15. In spite of this, the agriculture orientation index for India is below 1. So this means that we are underspending as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. Secondly, if you compare India's agriculture orientation index in comparison to US, our agriculture orientation index is quite lower in comparison to US. So this is what you must understand as far as the agriculture orientation index is concerned. So overall, this particular article highlights that we are not spending more on the Indian agriculture in relation to its contribution to the GDP. So what should be the way forward? See, as far as the way forward is concerned, even the Dalwai panel on doubling farmers' income had highlighted the same thing with respect to the investment in the agriculture. I hope all of you must be aware about the concept of the gross capital formation, which denotes the overall investment that we undertake in an economy. So, when we look at the gross capital formation of the Indian economy, that is the overall economy, this gross capital formation, this is expressed in terms of percentage of India's GDP. And this gross capital formation is approximately around 30% of India's GDP. So this is as far as the Indian economy is concerned. On similar lines, if you want to understand the gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture, what we do here is we express this in terms of percentage of agricultural GDP. So please understand the difference here. When we look at the overall gross capital formation of Indian economy, we express this in terms of percentage of India's GDP. But when you look at the gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture, that is investment in the Indian agriculture, this is expressed in terms of agricultural GDP. So this particular graph here, which has been taken from this year's economic survey. So this particular graph here shows the overall gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture in terms of percentage of agricultural GDP. So this green color line shows the overall gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture. And as you can see, at the start of the decade, the overall gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture was 18.2% of agriculture GDP. And now this has dropped down to approximately around 16%. So when you look at the overall gross capital formation of Indian economy expressed in terms of the overall GDP of India, it is almost 30%. Whereas if you look at the overall gross capital formation in the Indian agriculture expressed in terms of agricultural GDP, this is hardly around 16%. So as you can see, we are significantly underspending as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. That is the first thing. Secondly, if you look at this gross capital formation, that is the overall investment, this is contributed by both public sector, that is the government, and the private sector. And between these two entities, you can clearly see here that the private investment share in the overall gross capital formation, this is much higher than the public investment. So the private investment, that is basically the farmers, research institutes and so on, they spend more than what the government is spending as far as the gross capital formation is concerned. So out of this 16% of the gross capital formation, approximately around 14.3 is contributed with the private sector investment and only 2.7 is being contributed by the government, that is the public investment. See, as far as the government is concerned, as I said, the government will undertake expenditure on the Indian agriculture either in terms of subsidies or in terms of public investment. And we are seeing that in terms of public investment, the share of the overall government expenditure on the gross capital formation, this is approximately around 2.7% of agricultural GDP. On the other hand, if you look at the government's expenditure on the overall subsidies, this comes down to be approximately around 8% of agricultural GDP. So, as you can see here, clearly the government is spending more amount of money on the subsidies in comparison to the public investment. Now, if you look at the public investment, it is being said that the public investment is much better in comparison to subsidies. Why is that? This is so because enhanced public investment, it is considered to be inclusionary, that is, it benefits all the farmers. It has a potential to address the structural problems of the Indian agriculture. Now, for example, let's say the government is spending money on, say, fertilizers, water, electricity, etc. Now, most of the time, these subsidies are basically availed by the large farmers. This normally excludes, or these subsidies are not normally availed by the small and marginal farmers. So, subsidy regime as such, it is considered to be exclusionary because it does not benefit the small and marginal farmers. Similarly, when the government is spending huge amount of money on these subsidies, including the MSP, it is not going to address the present structural problems of the Indian agriculture. Now, for example, if the government continues to spend more amount of money on MSP, question is it going to address the present flaws in our marketing regime? Is it going to increase the penetration of the agriculture marketing in India? No. That is why the subsidy regime, it is considered to be exclusionary and it does not solve the structural problems of the Indian agriculture. On the other hand, higher public investment by the government, it can benefit all the farmers. For example, if government is spending on irrigation, it will benefit all the farmers and not necessarily only the large farmers. Similarly, it can address the structural problems of the Indian agriculture. That is why the Dalwai panel on doubling farmers' income had highlighted that we need to rationalize the subsidies. Whatever money that we save by rationalizing the subsidies, that money we must in turn divert it towards increasing the public investment. See, obviously, we cannot do away with the subsidies completely because by doing away with the subsidies, we would be going against the interests of the poor farmers. But what we must do here is we must rationalize the subsidies, ensure that only those farmers who are in extreme need of subsidies should be able to get them. So by rationalizing subsidies, whatever money we are able to save, that money we must in turn divert it towards enhancing the overall public investment in the agriculture. So that is how we can double the farmers' income going ahead. So these are some of the important things which you must understand as far as this particular article is concerned. So based upon our discussion, this was a mains question for practice. The question here was, the agriculture subsidies are encouraging those practices that needs to be discouraged. In this regard, there is a need to increase the public investment in agriculture as opposed to subsidies. So you can have a look at the suggested answer structure as well as suggested answer, wherein we have tried to compile this answer in approximately around 174 words. Apart from that, please have a look at these two practice questions for the prelims and let us know the answer in the comment section given below. With this, let us now take up the next article.
Now let's take up these articles appearing in the editorial section on page number 8 and 9. This news says, NEET is discriminatory against social justice. The NEET exemption bill not only defends the right to education and social rights but also upholds Tamil Nadu's rights. So clearly this article is with respect to upholding the rights of the state of Tamil Nadu in excluding the mandatory nature of NEET examination for its students in the state. Now the same idea has been proposed in the editorial, which says that the governor should not delay assent to Tamil Nadu's bill for exemption from mandatory admission test. So earlier in September 2021, the Tamil Nadu government had proposed a legislation exempting its students for admission into medical colleges. However, this bill was reserved by the governor since it impacted the central law. So the governor was supposed to refer this bill to the President of India for his opinion. But the governor did not send this bill to the President, rather reserved it with himself and then reverted the bill back to the Legislative Assembly for its reconsideration. So this is the constitutional issue involved here, and this is what has been suggested in this particular editorial. Now, this article appearing on page number 9, it says an extreme proposition. Chandrasekhar Rao's idea of floating a new constitution is not the solution to center-state issues. Now, in this article, the Chief Minister of Telangana has proposed a very extreme idea of rewriting the constitution and has said that even the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government proposed a commission to review the working of the constitution. However, the question raised in this article is that whether rewriting the constitution is the only solution, or are there any other provisions within the constitution to settle the center state disputes or central state issues. So as we can see that these three articles highlight some of the important constitutional aspects pertaining to the federal rights of states. And for the sake of our discussion, these becomes the important constitutional questions which can be raised after reading these three important articles. So our discussion will be based on these important questions. Let's go through the question one by one. The first question is regarding the first and second article regarding NEET. It says whether states have the constitutional right to frame legislation to opt out of NEET examination. Now this is because education is in the concurrent list. The next question is whether mandatory nature of NEET on a pan-India basis undermines the role of state governments in medical education. So basically the question is whether the state governments have any right where they can make their own provisions with respect to admission of students in the medical institutions. The next question is what is the recommendation of Justice A.K. Rajan committee which studied the impact of NEET on the students from backward communities of Tamil Nadu, based on which this committee suggested the Tamil Nadu government to propose a legislation thereby exempting it from the NEET examination. The next question is whether returning the bill by the governor to the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly on exempting students of Tamil Nadu from NEET examination without forwarding to the president constitutionally correct. So whether this practice was constitutionally correct. And lastly, what are the mechanisms suggested in the constitution to resolve center-state conflict or center-state disputes? So our whole discussion will be based on these questions which can be framed after going through these three very important articles. So the first question was that whether states have the constitutional right to frame legislations to opt out of NEET examination. And in this regard, since this article has been written by the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, he has emphasized on two important aspects. These two important aspects are states' autonomy or states' federal right to legislate on a matter which has been provided under the concurrent list. And the second point highlighted by the Chief Minister in this article is regarding ensuring social justice for the vulnerable sections of the population. So here he has stated that NEET examination in certain way acts as a barrier for the students belonging to the poor and backward sections of the community. And it is in this regard he has proposed a bill to exclude NEET from Tamil Nadu. And here he has taken recourse to this aspect of education which has been provided under the concurrent list under entry 25. So this entry says that education, including technical education, medical education and universities, however, subject to the provisions of these entries provided under Union List. So, whatever has been provided under entry 63, 64, 65 and 66 of Union List, on such issues, state government cannot frame a law with respect to technical education or medical education. So, entry 63, 64, 65 and 66 of the Union List mentions about institutions of Banaras Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University, Delhi University and university established in pursuance of Article 371E or any other institution declared by Parliament by law to be an institution of national importance. So on all these universities and institutions, state cannot make a law. Next, institutions for scientific or technical education financed by Government of India wholly or in part and declared by Parliament by law to be institutions of national importance. Then union agencies and institutions for professional, vocational or technical training, including training of police officers, promotion of special studies or research, scientific or technical assistance in the investigation or detection of crime, and coordination and determination of standards in institutions for higher education or research and scientific and technical educations. So on all these aspects which has been provided under union list, state government cannot make any law. However, the contention of state government of Tamil Nadu is that this exemption does not qualify under any of the provisions of entry 63, 64, 65 or 66 of union list, and hence they have the federal right and federal autonomy to make such a legislation. And further, this legislation is in order to ensure social justice in the state. Now here in this article, a Supreme Court judgment has been quoted with respect to Modern Dental College versus State of MP. Now under this judgment, a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court has stated that state government has the power to legislate on students' admission in higher education, and it also highlighted the importance of public education for public utility. So based on these understandings also, the state government of Tamil Nadu thinks that it is very much within its constitutional and legal rights to propose such an exemption. Now still there are two important aspects involved here. These are, is it mandatory for the governor to provide assent to such a bill under Article 200, or whether the governor can reserve such a bill for President's consideration under Article 201. Now there is another issue with respect to this particular bill initiated by the Tamil Nadu government. Now the problem here is that since this bill will exempt NEET for the students of Tamil Nadu, hence in certain way it will go against a central law which mandates NEET for entrance into undergraduate and postgraduate courses. So the issue here is regarding repugnancy of laws or a law proposed by the state government which is inconsistent with the central government. Now regarding inconsistency of laws made by Parliament and legislature of the state, the Constitution under Article 254 says that if any provision of a law is made by legislature of a state, so consider this law has been made by the legislature of a state, and this law, which is red in color, has been made by the Parliament. So it says that if any provision of the law made by the legislature of a state is repugnant or is inconsistent to any provision of a law made by Parliament, which the Parliament is competent to enact under the concurrent list, then subject to this particular provision, the law made by Parliament shall prevail, and the law made by the legislature of that state shall, to the extent of repugnancy or inconsistency, shall be void. So basically, if a law of a state is inconsistent in these parts of with respect to the law made by Parliament, then such part of the state law which is inconsistent with the law made by Parliament shall be declared as void. However, there is an exception to this particular provision as well. Now the second proviso to Article 254 provides an exception to first part. So it says that where a law has been made by the state legislature with respect to any matters enumerated in the concurrent list and contains any provision which is inconsistent with the law made by Parliament, then in such instances the law made by the legislature of a state may prevail if it has been approved or assented by the President. So it says that if it has been reserved for the consideration of the President and has received his assent or has received his approval. So basically, if the President of India under Article 254 allows such inconsistency, then such law of the state which is inconsistent with that of a law made by Parliament shall prevail. However, it further says that nothing prevents the Parliament from further enacting any law with respect to the same matter, including a law relating to amending, varying or repealing the law so made by legislature of a state. So in this regard, this aspect of repugnancy or inconsistency with the central law can be resolved if the President provides assent to such a bill. But such bill has to be reserved for President's assent under Article 254 of the Indian Constitution. Now, before moving into the aspect of Article 200 and 201, which has also been provided on page number 1 in the text and context section, Let's first of all go through question number 2 and question number 3 as per our discussion. So these two questions were that whether mandatory nature of NEET on pan-India basis undermines the role of state governments in medical education. Now for this purpose, the state government of Tamil Nadu constituted Justice A.K. Rajan committee. Now this committee has come up with number of suggestions. So the third question in this regard was, what is the recommendation of Justice A.K. Rajan committee, which studied the impact of NEET on students from backward communities of Tamil Nadu? So very importantly, this committee highlighted about the urban-rural divide in medical institutions, especially regarding admission under NEET, and also the fact that poor students were not able to get admission through NEET. And this aspect has also been highlighted through this particular report. So it says that prior to the NEET examination, 65.2% of the students from rural areas used to get admission in medical institutions. However, after NEET, this dropped to 48% in the year 2018-19. And here, the committee suggested that NEET did not consider class 12 marks and denied equal opportunities to states' oppressed, tribal and backward students. Further, the committee also suggested that those students had better chance of getting admission through NEET who attended private coaching, which was not possible for such students who were poor and who belonged to oppressed, tribal and backward communities. Now, the committee also highlighted that those students who studied in Tamil medium, for them, admission into medical institutions also lowered significantly from 14.8% in 2016-17, that is prior to NEET, to mere 1.99% in 2021. Further, the committee also stated that percentage of those students who attended the state board, that is the state board of Tamil Nadu, also declined from 65.66% in 2016-17, that is prior NEET, to 48.22% in 2017-18 when NEET was introduced. So based on these statistics, the A.K. Rajan committee submitted its report to the state government of Tamil Nadu. So first and foremost, the committee suggested the state government to eliminate NEET because the committee stated that if admission through NEET continues in the state, then it would impact the healthcare infrastructure in the state, and this would lead to shortage of doctors in primary health center and also in government hospitals. So this was one of the major recommendations of the A.K. Rajan committee. Further, the committee also stated that students from rural areas and poor backgrounds might lose access to medical education if NEET continued. Now, another very significant part highlighted by the committee was that it compared entry 25 of concurrent list, which we just saw, with entry 32 of state list. Now, this entry provides for regulation of universities. And here, the committee stated that this is an exclusive jurisdiction of state and this aspect overrides entry 25 of the concurrent list. Further, the committee stated that based on entry 32 of state list, Article 254 cannot be invoked. So far, the matter relates to regulation of university. So basically, if the state government comes up with a law eliminating NEET as an alternative of getting admission into medical education, but if this is done under entry 32, then in such instances, Article 254 cannot be invoked by the center because then the state government is very much within its own limit. So coming to the second question, here entry 25 of concurrent list was compared with entry 32 of state list. And the committee also suggested that based on entry 32 of state list, which provides for regulation of universities, in these circumstances, Article 254, which talks about inconsistency of state laws with that of the parliament, will not be needed. Further, the committee also suggested that the state government may also pass a law, that is Tamil Nadu government may pass a law to eliminate NEET for admission at all levels of medical education and also get President's assent for this particular purpose, that is gets President assent for this particular law, which would eliminate NEET as a mode for admission into medical institutions. Further, the committee stated that this will ensure social justice, especially for the vulnerable sections of the population, including the poor students. And for this purpose, the committee suggested that class 12th marks should be the sole criteria for admission into medical colleges in Tamil Nadu. as this ensures equality in opportunity for students irrespective of the boards of education they have attended. That is, irrespective of the fact whether they have attended ICSE board, CBSE board, or any other state board. Admission in medical institutions will be based on the class 12th marks which has been scored by the student irrespective of their boards. Further, the committee also floated the concept of an adversity score, especially for those students belonging to the vulnerable sections of the population, including the backward communities. And this could be done by reprofiling their scores. And also, the committee suggested to bring all deemed universities in the state of Tamil Nadu under the purview of the proposed legislation. So, these are some of the important highlights of the suggestions provided by the A.K. Rajan committee. So, after going through the first three questions, let's take up question number 4, which mentions about returning of the bill by the governor to the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu with respect to Article 200 and also 201. Now, this aspect of our fourth question has been provided under this article, which has appeared in the text and context section. It says the governor's role in approving a bill. Can the governor override the decision of the legislative houses? Under what circumstances does the president steps in? And all these aspects has been dealt in under Article 200 and 201. Now, the gist of this article says that the Tamil Nadu Assembly has once again adopted a bill on the exemption of NEET exams that was earlier returned by the governor, and the governor returned the bill stating that it was against the interest of rural and poor students. It further says that the governor will now have to grant his assent to the bill as mandated by Article 200 of the Constitution if the bill is sent again by the Legislative Assembly. It says that the first proviso of article enables the governor to return a bill for reconsideration, that is under Article 201. But if the bill is passed again and is presented to the governor for his assent, then the governor shall not withhold assent therefrom. It further says that the governor does not have discretion on matters of the assembly and is bound to follow the advice of his council of ministers even on matters where he or she might be withholding assent. So, coming to our question, it stated that whether returning the bill by the governor to the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly on exempting students of Tamil Nadu from NEET without forwarding it to the president constitutionally correct? Yes, it is constitutionally correct under Article 200 of the Indian Constitution. So, in this regard, let's go through the provisions of Article 200 and also 201 in order to understand the position of the governor and also that of the president. Now, Article 200 mentions about assent to bills. So it says that when a bill has been passed by the Legislative Assembly of a state, or if a state has a legislative council, then if a bill has been passed by both houses of the legislatures of the state, then it shall be presented to the governor for his assent. So from Legislative Assembly to the governor for his assent. Now the governor has these options. Either he can assent to the bill, that is provide his approval, or he may withhold assent therefrom, or he does not approve of the bill, or he reserves the bill for the consideration of the president. So as a third option, the governor can also reserve the bill for the president's consideration. Now there is another option available under Article 200. It says that the governor can also return the bill back to the Legislative Assembly. So it says that as soon as possible after the presentation of the bill to the governor for assent, the governor may return the bill if it is not a money bill, together with a message requesting certain changes in any particular provision which the governor may consider. So when such a bill is returned by the governor back to the Legislative Assembly, it says that when a bill is so returned, the house or houses shall reconsider the bill accordingly. So obviously the house will again reconsider the returned bill. Now next, what may happen is that bill which is returned by the governor, the assembly can either pass it with amendment as suggested by the governor or without any amendment. That is, the Legislative Assembly did not consider the changes as was suggested by the governor. And if the bill is again passed by House or both houses of State Assembly with or without amendment and it is again presented to the governor for assent, then the governor shall not withhold assent therefrom. That is, the governor is bound to assent. Further, it says that for a certain kind of bill, the governor may withhold his assent and reserve the bill for the consideration of the president. If in the opinion of the governor, if the bill takes away the powers of High Court, so that it endangers the position which the court is by this constitution designed to fulfill. So in such instances, the governor may withhold the bill for consideration of the president. Further, Article 201 provides for bill reserved for consideration. So it says that when a bill is reserved by a governor for the consideration of the president shall either declare that he assents to the bill, that is, he approves the bill, or that he withholds his assent from the bill. So these are the choices available to the president. Further, in case where it is not a money bill, president may direct the governor to return the bill to the house. So the president may direct the governor to return the bill back to the houses, that is state legislative assembly, along with a message for such changes, as has been provided under Article 200. And it further says that when a bill is so returned, the house or the houses shall reconsider these changes as has been suggested by the president within a period of 6 months from the date of receipt of such message. So after considering the changes or amendments as proposed by the president, the legislative assembly may either send back the bill to the president with amendment or without amendment. And in this regard, the provision says that if it is again passed by a house or houses of the state with or without amendment, it shall be presented again to the president for his consideration. But what will happen after this? It has not been provided in the constitution. So, assent of the president will be mandatory for the bill to become a law, and here no time frame has been provided in this regard for the president to provide assent to the bill or withhold assent therefrom. So under Article 201, a bill reserved by the governor for the consideration of the president must be approved or assented to by the president. However, no time frame has been provided as such. Now under Article 200 regarding returning of the bill by governor to the legislative assembly, there is no time frame which has been provided here as well. So the governor can either return the bill back to the legislative assembly or can keep it with himself for a certain period of time. Now after the fourth question, let's come to our fifth question. It says that what are the mechanisms suggested in the constitution to resolve center-state conflict? Now this provision is regarding that article where the Chief Minister of Telangana has suggested an extreme position to rewrite the constitution. Nevertheless, the constitution still provides for certain important provisions to settle disputes between center and states. And here the most important provision is Article 131, which mentions about the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court to settle disputes between center and states. So Article 131 says that the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction in any dispute between Government of India and one or more states, between Government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more states on the other side, and between two or more states. The other provisions to settle interstate disputes are Article 279A, which provides for GST Council, Article 280, which provides for the Constitution of Finance Commission, and Article 263, which provides for Interstate Council. Now, in this regard, the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution has also suggested the Union Government to utilize this platform to settle its dispute and also to inspire confidence between Union-State relationship to ensure a healthy cooperative federalism in India. Further, the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution has also suggested to amend Article 139A, which empowers Supreme Court to withdraw to itself similar cases which are pending in high courts. So here the commission has stated that the Supreme Court under Article 139A should also have powers to withdraw to itself all pending cases in any court where questions of legislative competence of parliament or state legislature is involved. So on any issue pertaining to the legislative competence of state or center must be heard by the Supreme Court under Article 139A as per the suggestion or as per the recommendation of National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution. Now this question was asked by UPSC in 2014, which was a fairly straightforward question which stated that the power of Supreme Court of India to decide disputes between center and states fall under its. Options were A. Advisory jurisdiction, B. Appellate jurisdiction, C. Original jurisdiction, and D. Writ jurisdiction. In this, the correct answer was C, that is original jurisdiction. Now this question becomes your practice question, which says that which of the following are included in the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Now this question was asked by UPSC in 2012. Options were: first, a dispute between Government of India and one or more states; second, a dispute regarding elections to either house of the parliament or that of the legislature of a state. Third, a dispute between Government of India and a union territory. And fourth, a dispute between two or more states. And options were A, 1 and 2, B, 2 and 3, C, 1 and 4, and D, 3 and 4. Now try to attempt this particular question as it was asked by UPSC. And this is a fairly simple question based on original jurisdiction of Supreme Court under Article 131 of the Indian Constitution. So in this discussion, we have gone through all these important aspects which has appeared within these important articles, including the article which appeared in the text and context section with respect to Article 200 and 201 of the Indian Constitution. Now this topic becomes important both from our prelims and mains perspective, and it gets covered under GS paper 2, especially with respect to center-state relationships regarding federal rights of states. Now coming to our question for the day, the same practice question becomes your question for the day regarding the original jurisdiction of Supreme Court, which was asked by UPSC in 2012. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, it was, consider the following statements regarding department-related parliamentary standing committees. First statement, the committees have been equally divided between Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. No, this is incorrect, as Lok Sabha has 16 committees and Rajya Sabha has 8 committees. Second, the committees examine the demand for grants of the related ministries or departments. Yes, this is correct. Third, the committees also consider matters of day-to-day administration of the concerned ministries or their departments. No, this is incorrect. So the question is, which of the statements given above are incorrect? So in this, the correct answer was B, that is 1 and 3 only. That is, both 1 and 3 are incorrect. So with this, we come to an end to today's discussion. Thank you for watching DNS.